Are you looking for the best camera phone? In this video we will look at some of the best camera phone. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Number 1. Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is the best camera phone available. Samsung's flagships land among the best all-around Android phones regularly, so it shouldn't be surprising to see a Galaxy device immediately. We put the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra through its paces in our review, and its premium setup lives up to its high-end price. This is the best camera phone available right now and perhaps the best in the long history of smartphone cameras. Its sheer megapixel might on both the front and back, combined with in-depth control, make it the best camera phone for almost any user. The new model's main imaging toolkit is largely consistent with the Galaxy S23 Ultras except for the new telephoto camera. A wider aperture 50MP 5x snapper replaces the 10MP 10x telephoto, offering better mid-length zoom with a sensor crop for longer focal lengths. Beyond this tweak, we've seen a pretty similar experience across the two devices. Samsung's primary sensor is, of course, its megapixel-hogging 200MP ISOCELL HP2 once again. It's backed by Samsung's powerful 12MP ultra-wide lens and a 10MP 3x telephoto that we haven't mentioned yet. Around the front, you'll find a 12MP selfie camera tucked into the Infinity-O display. Although megapixels only tell a portion of the story, the combination of lenses sets the Galaxy S24 Ultra up nicely to excel in almost any situation. We've run it through a gauntlet of situations during our initial review, as well as a selection of comparisons against some of the other devices on this list, and it picks up right where its predecessor left off. It returns clean, sharp images with decent HDR, but only when warranted, as well as Samsung's standard color profile, which is finally inching a bit closer to reality. Of course, pixel binning makes the massive 200MP sensor a little easier to manage. You can push it back to the full resolution as needed, but we found that it still performed admirably at its lower resolution. Despite the change in telephoto sensors, the Galaxy S24 Ultra remains sharp and competitive across its entire range. Its standard telephoto lens adds 3x optical zoom to the mix, while the periscope telephoto partner increases to 5x optical zoom. The result is that you can punch in much further on images without losing quality. Of course, as the third and fourth cameras in the setup, the telephoto shooters have much smaller lenses, but we didn't notice too much drop-off in terms of color or clarity. No, 10x optical zoom won't be as clean or as clear as 1x zoom from the primary camera, but it easily trumps hybrid and digital zoom from the phone's closest rivals. Even Samsung's ultra-wide shooter keeps distortion to a minimum and is capable of nearly matching the primary shooter's colors. Number 2. Google Pixel 8 Pro is best for excellent image processing software. The Google Pixel line is no longer an example of high-end image processing with modest hardware. After years of punching above its weight class with software alone, the Pixel 8 Pro packs the hard-earned muscles to compete with the best camera phones around. It builds on the upgrades of the previous Pixel 7 series and infuses them with even more editing tricks courtesy of the Tensor G3. Google's latest flagship makes a few small hardware tweaks from its predecessor, mostly adding megapixels to the ultra-wide sensor. The Pixel 8 Pro's 50MP primary sensor and 48MP telephoto sensor still shine, and the latter is still locked in at 5x optical zoom. If you go Pro, you'll also find a 48MP ultra-wide lens to round out the aluminum-coated camera bar. On top of that, Google's swap from glossy to matte glass gives the Pixel 8 Pro a new level of polish and comfort in the hand. Of course, how you use a camera is often the deciding factor above sheer specs, and the Pixel 8 Pro is no different. It still offers a slimmed-down approach to the camera interface, preferring to let the updated Tensor G3 chip do the bulk of the thinking. You can choose your shooting mode and your subject, but now the Pixel 8 Pro has a brand new trick: manual controls. You can finally dig into the shutter speed, ISO, and much more to make your images feel a bit more like your own. We once again took a mountain of photos around Paris to put the Pixel 8 Pro through its paces, which you can see here. We're still waiting on the results of our next in-depth camera test, but it's tough to see the Pixel 8 Pro giving up much room. Its predecessor edged the Galaxy S23 Ultra in recognizing scenarios where HDR is important, and we still love Google's natural color profile over Samsung's saturation. Number 3. Apple iPhone 15 Pro is the best iOS camera experience. We are Android authority, and most of this list is dedicated to Android camera phones, but it's still impossible to leave Apple out entirely. The iPhone 15 Pro, or its larger Pro Max variant, continues some of the major camera updates from its predecessor, including the high-resolution primary sensor. Apple adopted a 48MP sensor on the iPhone 14 Pro, which it's taken to calling the main camera rather than the wide camera, and paired it with two familiar 12MP backups. The same trio is back for the iPhone 15 lineup. That means you still get a powerful, flexible triple camera setup, and it still performs admirably against the best that Android has to offer. The iPhone 15 Pro keeps a relatively natural color profile, which will be pleasing for most users. Apple even claims a 6x optical zoom range, though it's using the 0.5x ultrawide and 3x optical telephoto to get there. Apple's detail recreation is excellent, and the iPhone itself is best described as a creator's toolkit. If you're willing to shoot in RAW, you can export massive files straight from the main camera and edit them to your heart's content in Lightroom. Apple also lets you set your photographic style upon setup, which means you can tweak your contrast and tint to match your personal style. We stuck with the true neutral profile for our tests, and it worked nicely. We've focused primarily on still images through our top camera phone picks so far, but the iPhone shows its strength as a video camera option as well. It offers a special cinematic mode for video, which adds digital bokeh and autofocuses on faces as they look at the camera. We found that the feature generally worked as advertised, though it can struggle with multiple faces at one time. You'll also have to stump extra cash for professional costumes and lighting before you can make the iPhone 14 Pro a true go-to for your feature film. Apple's ProRes Video also delivers lossless compression, which makes editing your footage slightly more manageable. As for the phone itself, the design is classic iPhone with a twist. It's as tough as ever, with a ceramic shield front and a durable IP68 rating. However, Apple ditched its previous stainless steel frame for a titanium one, in case you haven't seen every iPhone 15 Pro ad ever. The iPhone 15 Pro has slightly softer edges, too, that meld to the palm of your hand rather than cut into it. Number 4. Sony Xperia Pro. There's no denying Sony's place among the best camera phones, though it comes with a few caveats. Depending on where you live, we're recommending different devices in the lineup. Really, it comes down to a matter of price and availability, but both options deliver impressive quality and high-end camera controls. Up first is Sony's Xperia Pro I, which is the better choice for users in the United States. It's taken up the mantle as Sony's professional-grade imaging smartphone, following on the heels of the original Xperia Pro. The Xperia Pro I also adopts a slightly different design from the brand's other flagships, shifting the camera array from the corner into the center to give the massive camera sensor enough room to perform. Just be ready for the enormous price tag to match. The Sony Xperia Pro I will set you back $1,799 for 12GB of RAM and 512GB of storage. As Sony's pro-focused camera phone, with all of the irony that entails, you get a pro-focused camera interface as well. The in-app controls and Zeiss optics feel like they were shaved straight off of a full-frame shooter, as does the control over the camera aperture. You can pull up a virtual PSM dial, which the app will then explain to you before you can dive in. As soon as you choose a mode other than automatic, the app opens options for autofocus, flash, exposure compensation, and so much more. Like Samsung's Expert RAW, it can be overwhelming for beginners but can feel like a secret weapon for camera pros.